everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Penny and this is Penny's Small Spaces. I hope everyone is doing well. I've been watching on the news, so I know a lot of the southern states are getting hit with some pretty nasty weather. A snowstorm like that's kind of an everyday occurrence for us here in Canada, but I know for you all that is not something you're used to, and I'm feeling for you. I really am. Up here, our weather is finally starting to improve. We had about 3 weeks of like stupid cold, like can't go out of the house, stupid cold. But this week, temperatures have come way up. They're about 10 degrees over freezing, which is awesome. You'll actually see some Canadians walking around in shorts in that weather. I'm not one of those people, but it certainly does happen up here for sure. So what's new? Well, this week I picked up some new equipment for recording the videos. So up until this point, I've been using this boom arm, which has been great, but it's very limiting in the views for when I'm recording some of my content. It really only allows me to record from the top down, and sometimes that's not conducive to what I'm doing. So I picked up a new stand this week, and I'm just now kind of experimenting with some different angles. So you'll notice in this video that the angle is completely different from what you're used to. I'm curious whether or not you like it, whether you think it's better or worse. Should I stay with what I had? I'm still not 100% sure which direction I'm going to come from at the end of the day. It was a little tricky getting used to it. I found myself bringing things up to where the camera would normally be, and anyway, I got it figured out. So let me know in the comments what you think. So in today's video, I'm going to be creating a king-size bed for the master bedroom in the dollhouse. I have only taken it up to the completion stage, but not dressed, because I'm still not 100% sure what kind of fabric I want to use for sheets and pillows and such. But the bed in its entirety is completed up until that point. As always, your cutting instructions will be in the description box below. And I've also added a little bit of extra information about a couple of the tools that I've used in this process that you might be interested in. So having said that, let's get started. Lots of different materials that I'm going to be using for this build. So the first one are these little round beads, and I'm going to be using these for the feet or the legs of the bed. Then I have some pieces that I've cut out of chipboard, or gray board as it's sometimes referred to. I have some of my pieces cut out of wood, and I'll explain a little bit later as to why I did either of those. I have some pieces of foam board, and then I also have a piece of 1/2-inch foam for the mattress itself. And then for the upholstery, I've got some fabric. So I've got some quilt batting here, and then I've also got a piece of white cotton fabric that I'll be using to cover both the mattress as well as the upholstered sides of the box spring. My first step is going to be to create the box spring for the bed. And I've opted to use wood for this because this is basically the structural part of the bed. Now, the basswood that I purchase is only 10 centimeters or 4 inches wide, which isn't wide enough for a king-size bed. So I've had to piece these together. If you have larger pieces of wood that you use, you may be able to skip this part entirely and then just cut your pieces to the full width of what this king-size bed will be. I've also got 4 pieces that will go in between the top and the bottom, of course, to make a box. I'm going to start by making the top and the bottom. So for each one, you'll need 1 piece marked A and 1 piece marked B. And you're just going to slide those in beside each other and glue them together. Apply your glue to just one of the longer sides. Push those 2 pieces together, and I would hold it there for about 30 seconds or so just to give the glue a chance to grab. You'll also want to make sure that both your top and your bottom are nice and flush. Follow that same process and put the second set of A and B together. So I put those two pieces aside to let them dry, and now I'm going to build the frame that will go in between the top and the bottom pieces. So you should have two pieces marked C and two pieces marked D. Your C pieces are slightly longer, and they're going to run down the sides of the bed. So each of those pieces will go from the headboard down to the footboard. I also wanted to show you my new little toy. So these are basically made to make 90-degree angles. And you can see that there's different slots here, and each one is a little bit different size. Now, it covers all of the different craft plywood that I use, and I'm anywhere from 1 millimeter up to 3 millimeters and kind of everything in between. So it works for everything that I use. And it basically, you just put one piece of your plywood in one slot and the other piece going up the other side, and they glue at 90-degree angles. So these come in a set of 4. I got them from Temu. They cost me $5, and I'm telling you, it's the best $5 I think I've ever spent. So there you go, my first unsponsored Temu plug. Now, how you glue this frame together is important. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to make sure that your piece marked C, which is your longer piece, goes all the way up into the frame, and then the pieces marked D will butt up against piece number C. If you do it the other way around, then the frame is not going to be the same size as your top and bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit of glue here to piece marked D, and I'm going to butt that up against piece marked C. Then I'll take a second corner and slide it into the other side of piece marked C so that I can butt up the second piece of D against it. So I've carried on all the way around, and now I have my full frame put together, and I'm just going to put it aside and give the glue a chance to dry. So that's completely dry now. So now I'm just going to sandwich this frame in between my top and my bottom piece. So I've glued on the one piece, and I want to make sure that I clamp that down really well so that it doesn't start to warp the frame. So I'm just going to grab my clamps and just put a few clamps all the way around the outside. Once that one side was dry, I flipped it over and glued on the second side. Moving on to step number 2, this is the upholstering of the box spring. So I've cut out 2 pieces marked E and 2 pieces marked F. I ended up at the end not using one of the pieces marked F. So your cutting instructions only show one piece. I also have my quilt batting and the fabric that I'm going to be using for the upholstery. So your 2 pieces marked E are slightly longer than the one piece marked F. So I have marked them with a pencil which one is which so that I don't get them confused when I go to put them onto the bed. So the first thing that I'm going to do is glue these pieces down to the quilt batting. So I'm just using some Eileen's tacky glue here, but I am spreading it out so that it doesn't seep through the batting. Then I'm just pressing it glue side down onto the batting. The chipboard did start to curl up a little bit from the glue, so I'm using my 1, 2, 3 blocks to weight them all down so that they dry nice and flat. And then once they're dry, I'm just going in and I'm trimming off any excess of the batting that's sticking out from the chipboard. So now I have my white fabric, And I don't want to glue these down onto the fabric because I think the glue will seep through onto the fabric and I don't want that. So I'm just cutting these pieces out. They're about 3/8 to maybe even 1/2 inch bigger on all 4 sides from the chipboard, and that's going to allow me enough fabric to pull it up and over and glue it onto the back of these pieces. So now I'm just going to go ahead and use some tacky glue to put it on the back of the chipboard, and we'll pull that fabric up and over. I want to pull that fabric up snugly onto the back, but don't pull it up too tight, because if you pull it too tight, then you'll lose the effect of having put that batting on the other side. Now for the ends, I've just trimmed away a little bit of the excess so it's not super thick there, and then I'm just going to pull those sides in as well. And again, that chipboard has started to curl, so I'm going to weight these down while they dry, and I'm going to repeat this same process on the remaining pieces. So I finished those upholstered pieces now, and I'm going to attach them onto the box spring. So I'm going to start with my 2 side pieces, which are your pieces marked E. And so they should fit flush from one end to the other. And I'm going to use some wood glue to attach those sides. So I've added both of my side pieces on now. So now I just need to add 1 piece marked F to the bottom or the footboard of the bed. And this piece marked F should be long enough to cover not just the box spring itself, but also the edges of the 2 pieces marked E. The reason that I opted not to add that 4th piece was because at some point I'm going to have to attach the headboard, and that piece would have gotten in the way of being able to do that. Step 3, let's make a mattress. So the only foam that I have is this 1/2 inch, and I don't think it's thick enough. So what I've done here is I've cut a piece of foam board the same size as the mattress, and I'm going to add that to the bottom. That will do 2 things. It'll give me a little bit of structure for the bottom of the mattress, and it also gives it just a little bit more thickness. Having said that, if you have a thicker piece of foam and don't need to use the foam board to get the extra bit of width, then you can skip this step. I'm going to attach these 2 pieces together just using some tacky glue. Now the tacky glue is going to try and warp this piece of foam board. So as soon as you get it together, you'll need to weight it down, either with some blocks if you have them, or a nice heavy book will do the trick as well. I just want to make sure when I'm spreading the glue that I'm getting it all the way to the edge so that part of the mattress doesn't stick up from the base. Once that dried, I upholstered it the same way that I did the sides that went onto the box spring. Make sure that you've got the foam side down and that you're pulling the fabric up and gluing it onto the foam board. Now at this point, if you're going to be adding sheets and you want to do that now before you glue these 2 together, you can certainly do that. I don't know yet what fabric I'm going to use. So when I glue them together, I'm not going to go all the way to the edge. That way, once I decide what I'm going to be using, I can just tuck it in between the 2 pieces. Okay, moving on to step 4. This is going to be the headboard for the bed. So this is going to be a padded headboard, and I want to give that appearance of having, when you put buttons in and it kind of pulls it in a little bit. So I've gone in and I've drawn a grid on my chipboard to use as a guide for where the needle is going to go in and out to pull back that fabric. For this part of the headboard, you're going to need your chipboard piece marked K and your foam board piece marked I. Now I'm going to poke a hole on the corners of every one of these squares. So I've got my very sharp little awl, and I'm just going to go in and I'm going to push a hole through all the way through to the bottom, and I'm going to make that hole as big as I can with this tool so that I have enough room for the needle to go all the way through. After I had pushed through all of the holes, I took the chipboard and turned it over, and I just took a piece of sandpaper to sand the backside nice and flat. Then I took my foam board and I peeled away the paper from just one side of the foam board. I glued the two pieces together so that the raw foam, so the side that we took the paper off of, was on one side, and the pattern of the chipboard was on the other. Make sure you weight that piece down as well until the glue has had a chance to dry. I took some sandpaper and went all the way around the raw foam just to take off some of those sharp edges. Then to the side of the raw foam, I glued on a piece of quilt batting. This adds just another layer of pillowy softness so that when I pull that fabric in with the needle and thread, it comes in just a little bit farther. Now, rather than gluing the whole thing on, I'm just putting glue around the outside edge, because when you're trying to push that needle and thread through later, if there's a whole layer of glue in between the quilt batting and the foam, it's just going to make it that much harder to get your needle to go through. You can go ahead and snip off your excess as you go around. Once you've glued your quilt batting all the way around, now we're going to upholster it just like we did the other pieces. Now when you're bringing your fabric up, you want to make sure that you're not covering any of those holes that you've pushed through. Otherwise, it's just going to be that much more difficult to find your design. Once the upholstery was done, then it was time to add that pillowy effect. So I've just taken a needle and matching thread, and I'm just going from the back to the front and then back through the same hole in the chipboard. And once I bring it back through the back, I'm going to pull it nice and snug, and it makes that effect of having like a sewn-in button, like I was saying. The trick here is to make sure that you hold it nice and snug as you go through each of the holes. If you're not pulling it snug enough, then you're not going to have that puckered effect. Now, when I first started doing this, I was using little seed beads. As I come up through the top, would add a little seed bead and then go back down. I thought it would give the impression of those little buttons. However, even those tiny little seed beads were out of scale, and I didn't like the look of being able to see. For some of them, they look kind of flat, and then other ones you could see the hole in the bead, and I didn't like it. So I took it out and I started over. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of these little pillowy puckers into the fabric, and then I'm going to go in and I think I'm going to add some caviar beads to make it look like there is a button there as well. So I'm just going all the way from one end to the other in the line, then I'll go down to the next line, I'll go back the other way until I have done this with all of the holes that I've put into the chipboard. So now here's what it looks like now that I've finished all of the sewing. Now, I think the original purpose of caviar beads was specifically for nail art. However, I have found that in making miniatures, they're quite useful for a lot of different things. So these again are a Temu purchase. I bought 2 vials, one vial full of silver and one of gold. I'm going to use the silver today because it just works with the color scheme that I have in mind for this room. Now to attach the beads, I'm just using a very tiny bit of tacky glue. And then I'm just dropping a little bead on top of the glue. And here's what it looked like when I was all done. So one of the reference pictures that I was looking at when I was trying to figure out how to make this headboard had sides coming out on either side of the headboard. And I thought it looked really lovely. And it certainly added some interest to an otherwise flat headboard. So that's what we're going to do next. And these will be your pieces marked G. You should have 2 of them, and they'll be cut from your chipboard. And rather than having those sides be just straight up and down, I took a piece of paper the same size as piece G, and I've just cut a little bit of an angle design to it, and I'm going to transfer that pattern onto the 2 pieces for the sides. Then I went ahead and just cut out that design from the chipboard just using my X-Acto knife. I've upholstered these pieces just a little bit differently than I did the first ones. So you want to make sure that when you're gluing it down to your quilt batting, that the 2 pieces of chipboard are going in the opposite direction from each other. So I've trimmed off the excess of the batting. And now when I add the white fabric, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of roll it up from where the curve is in that piece. And if you pull it nice and snug, because it's small enough, you should be able to get that wrapped around without any kind of wrinkles. But I also want to cover both sides of this piece without having any kind of bare chipboard in the middle. Then I just wrapped the fabric all the way around this piece, and I just trimmed off excess fabric as I went and tucked down the sides. At the end of the day, you want the smooth side to be the side that has the quilt batting under it, and you want the side that has the raw edge to be back on the chipboard side, and you want that raw edge to be as close to the straight edge of that piece as you can get it, because that straight edge is going to be hidden by the rest of the headboard, and so you're not going to see that raw edge that you can see just above my thumb here. Now I'm going to attach this to the main headboard. So I'm going to put the side that has the chipboard on it towards the inside, and then the piece itself, the wider part of it, will be at the top and flush with the top of the headboard. While the headboard is drying, I'm going to add the wood piece to the box spring. This is piece number L, and I've just attached it to the end where the headboard will sit. So I've just added a few pieces of masking tape here so that that last piece that I've attached doesn't warp. Now the reason that I've added this last piece on is I needed to bring the back of the bed out just a little bit to give myself more room to attach the headboard to. I'm going to use these coffee stir sticks to make some braces for the headboard. So you'll just want to make sure that you have a look at the headboard and make sure that you're gluing them onto the bottom of the headboard and not the top. I'm going to use wood glue here to attach these, and I'm going to put 3 braces, one on either end and then one in the middle. And you can see that I've propped this headboard up on my 1, 2, 3 blocks. That's just so that I don't break the sides off while I'm applying the braces. Now I'm going to go ahead and attach the box spring to the mattress. And like I said earlier, I'm leaving a little bit of space around the outside so that I can tuck in my sheets later. And once again, you'll want to weight these 2 pieces down while your glue takes hold. So now finally, I'm going to glue on the headboard to the back of the bed. So I want to sit the headboard down so that it's flush with the top of the mattress. And if I turn it over here, you can see that those 3 braces that I added are now lined up with that extra piece of wood that I've installed. And we're just going to go ahead and put some wood glue there and glue those together. Just a couple more quick things to do and then we'll be done. So even though the back of this headboard will never be seen because of course it's butted up against the wall, I don't want to leave it like it is unfinished. So what I've done is I've cut one last piece of the white fabric and I'm just going to cover this up. Also by putting a little bit of glue in where those threads are, it'll help to secure those threads as well and less likelihood that those threads are going to pull out or break on me. And the very last thing is to attach the beads to the bottom of the bed to create some feet. Now normally if this was a single or a double or even a queen, I might only put 4 feet on the bed, but because this is a king size, I feel like it warrants an extra couple of feet. So I'm going to go ahead and put 3 on each side for a total of 6. So that finishes the construction of the bed. And like I said, I still have to dress the bed. I haven't yet decided what kind of sheets I'm going to put on it, but the top cover or comforter will be this lovely royal blue because the room it's going into is going to be blue and white. So that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for joining me as always, and I hope to see you in the next one. Until then, bye for now.